Alright, hi everyone. I am doing my refutal speech on Mary's claim. Her claim is it is not worth the cost of investing in renewable energy. We are fine with fossil fuels. Her secondary claims, fossil fuels have been providing energy efficiency and effectively for many years, and it still is to this day. That's the first one. The second one, they want to change the way we obtain energy by speeding up the process in which renewable energy is integrated into the system. Her third claim is there is no need to speed up the process of integrating a type of renewable energy into this present system for these reasons. My counterclaim to this is that our global infrastructure systems cannot continue depending on fossil fuels as they are running out, and that we should be investing and developing alternative energy resources. So, my first counterclaim, fossil fuels such as oil, petroleum, natural gas, and coal are non-renewable energy resources. They are not sustainable and will inevitably run out if we continue to use them. According to the Independent Statistics and Analysis of U.S. Energy Information Administration, the United States has about 84 years of natural gas and petroleum. These resources took millions of years to form under thick layers of sediment and rock, which is something that our world's infrastructure does not have time for. The CIA's World Fact Book reads that globally, every year we currently consume the equivalent of over 11 billion tons of oil in fossil fuels. Crude oil reserves are vanishing at the rate of 4 billion tons a year. If we carry on at this rate without any increase for our growing population or aspirations, our known oil deposits will be gone by 2052. We'll still have gas left and coal too. But if we increase gas production to fill the energy gap left by oil, then those reserves will only give us an additional 8 years, taking us to 2060. But the rate at which the world consumes fossil fuels is not standing still. It is increasing as the world's population increases and as living standards rise in parts of the world that until recently had consumed very little energy. Fossil fuels will therefore run out earlier. My response to her secondary claim, renewable energy integration would be beneficial because it focuses on incorporating renewable energy, distributed generation, energy shortage, thermally activated technologies, and demand response into the electric distribution and transmission systems. Fossil fuel dependence has created many environmental problems. Among the gases emitted when fossil fuels are burned, one of the most significant is carbon dioxide, which is a gas that traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere. Over the last 150 years, burning fossil fuels has resulted in more than a 25% increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Scientists with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change concluded in a 1995 report that the observed increase in global average temperature over the last century is unlikely to be entirely natural in origin, and that the balance of evidence suggests that there is a discernible human influence on global climate. These same scientists predict that if carbon dioxide levels continue to increase, the planet will become warmer in the next century. One great example of alternative energy integration is wind. Wind generation can provide benefits to the current electric grid that some thermal generation sources cannot. Wind farms can assist over power systems by providing additional economic value and reliability. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, in 2014, Denmark led the way with power supplying roughly 39% of the country's electricity demand. Ireland, Portland, and Spain provided more than 20% of their electricity needs from wind, and the U.S. States, Iowa and South Dakota, topped the U.S. market with more than 25% wind energy production in 2014. Additionally, increasing wind production decreases fuel consumption. My response to her third claim, a combination of conservation, efficiency, wind and solar can meet 100% of our energy needs. According to a January 2006 analysis by the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Laboratory, the entire U.S. electricity demand could technically be met by renewable energy resources by 2020, and longer term. The potential of domestic renewable resources is huge. More than 85 times current U.S. energy use, solar alone can provide 55 times our current energy use. Wind can provide 6 times our current national use within 10 to 20 years, without impacting quality of life or manufacturing output. The U.S. Congress Office of Technology Assessment documented that cost-effective energy efficiency improvements could reduce electricity use by 27% to 75% of total national use within 10 to 20 years. I'm sorry, I repeated that. In the transportation sector, overall fuel economy for cars and light trucks in the U.S. market reached its highest levels in 1987, when manufacturers managed 22.1 miles per gallon. The average in 2004 was 20.8 miles per gallon, using hybrid technology. This average can be doubled by 2015. The Union of Concerned Scientists calls for increasing fuel economy to 40 miles per gallon by 2015 and 55 miles per gallon by 2025. With these claims, I conclude my counterclaim. Thank you.
All right. The propositions identified, you identify the secondary claims that you're going to go through. Most of your argument is really about a counterclaim. There's not much response to the advocate's evidence or reasoning on any of these points. You don't directly challenge any of the reasoning. You just present what the argument is on the other side, which is not automatically a bad response, but it is one that means that all of your argument is really, counterclaims, and as a result, there's not much discussion of the reasoning or the information used by the advocate. I think on the counterclaims you do a pretty good job suggesting that we're going to need a variety of energy resources, although I don't remember what the advocate's evidence was on these particular points, how long they said our energy reserves would be, whether or not we would be able to last a longer period of time. So it's a little bit hard to compare the statistics you have on that first point to whatever the advocate presented, because you don't really talk about the advocate's information there. I do think you've got a good argument here about the rate of consumption increasing, and I think that you should probably develop that argument a little bit more to suggest that maybe the advocate, for instance, underplays or has ignored the likelihood that there's going to be increased demand for energy resources in the future. On the second point, you've got an argument here suggesting that there are negative consequences that come from the use of fossil fuels, which I think is it's a good rebuttal issue. For a policy argument, it would definitely be applicable as a disadvantage. I don't know that it necessarily demonstrates the argument that the advocate's talking about, which is that we don't need these. I guess there's an argument if you say need involves what's safe versus what's potentially dangerous. Although we never get much danger here, the best I get is that the planet will warm up a bit. So why is that a bad thing? Especially on a day like today, I'd be perfectly happy with that. I thought that you had some good information, though, suggesting that alternatives will be able to provide a huge amount of energy in the near future. I thought that was pretty solid, and you did that long term. on the other end. I don't know that the advocate ever suggested that we don't need to have replacement energy sources. I don't remember that that was essential to their argument. I think they, in essence, suggested that it's not a crisis or an emergency. So this is one of those places where a little bit more contrast would be helpful. It's not a big deal. I didn't detract points from you, but sometimes it affects people's credibility when they use a terminology that's awkward. Refutal is not a word. All right, so it's and it's certainly not an adjective that describes the speech. It's a refutation speech. That's okay. Your refutal speech, I don't know what that is. Sorry.